Part 3. The Return of Merlin. Igraine talks to me of love. It is spring here in Dinarac, and the sun infuses the monastery with a feeble warmth. There are lambs on the southern slopes, though yesterday a wolf killed 3 of them and left a blood trail past our gate. Beggars gather at the gate for food and hold out their diseased hands when Igraine comes to visit. One of the beggars stole the maggoty remains of a lamb carcass from the scavenging ravens and sat there gnawing at the pelt as Igraine arrived this morning. "Was Guinevere really beautiful?" she asks me. "No," I say, "but many women would exchange their beauty for Guinevere's looks." Igraine, of course, wanted to know if she herself was beautiful, and I assured her she was. But she said the mirrors in her husband's care were very old and battered, and it was so hard to tell. "Wouldn't it be lovely," she said, "to see ourselves as we really are?" "Oh, God does that," I said, "and only God." She wrinkled her face at me. "I do hate it when you preach at me, Devil. It doesn't suit you. If Guinevere wasn't beautiful, then why did Arthur fall in love with her?" "Love is not only for the beautiful," I said reprovingly. "Did I say it was?" Igraine asked indignantly. "But you said Guinevere attracted Arthur from the very first moment. So if it wasn't beauty, what was it?" "The very sight of her," I answered, "turned his blood to smoke." Igraine liked that. She smiled. "So she was beautiful?" "She challenged him," I answered, "and he thought he would be less than a man if he failed to capture her. And maybe the gods were playing games with us." I shrugged, unable to come up with more reasons. "And besides," I said, "I never meant to say she was not beautiful, just that she was more than beautiful. She was the best-looking woman I ever saw." "Including me?" my queen immediately demanded. "Alas," I said, "my eyes are dim with age." She laughed at the evasion. "Did Guinevere love Arthur?" she asked. "She loved the idea of him," I said. "She loved that he was the champion of Dumnonia, and she loved him as he was when she first saw him. He was in his armour, the great Arthur, the shining one, the lord of war, the most feared sword in all of Britain and Armorica." Igraine ran the tasselled cord of her white robe through her hands. She was thoughtful for a while. "Do you think I turn Brockvale's blood to smoke?" she asked wistfully. "Nightly," I said. "Oh, Devil," she sighed, and slipped off the window-sill to walk to the door from where she could stare down into our little hall. "Were you ever in love like that?" she asked. "Yes," I admitted. "Who was it?" she demanded instantly. "Never mind," I said. "I do mind. I insist. Was it Nimue?" she asked. "It wasn't Nimue," I said firmly. "Nimue was different. I loved her, but I wasn't mad with desire for her. I just thought she was infinitely—" I paused, looking for the word and failing to find it. "Wonderful," I offered lamely, not looking at Igraine so she would not see my tears. She waited for a while. "So, who were you in love with? Lunette?" No. "Who then?" she persisted. "The story will come in time," I said, "if I live." "Of course you'll live. We shall send you special foods from the care." "Which my Lord Sansom," I told her, not wanting her to waste the effort, "will take from me as unworthy fare for a mere brother." "Then come and live in the care," she said eagerly. "Please." I smiled. "I would do that most willingly, lady, but alas, I took an oath to stay here." Poor Derval. She went back to the window and watched Brother Maelgwyn digging. He had our surviving novice, Brother Tudwell, with him. The second novice died of a fever in the late winter, but Tudwell still lives and shares the saint's cell. The saint wants the boy taught his letters, mainly, I think, so he can discover whether I really am translating the gospel into Saxon. But the lad is not bright, and seems better suited to digging than to reading. It is time we had some real scholars here in Dinarac, for this feeble spring has brought our usual rancorous arguments about the date of Easter, and we shall have no peace until the argument is done.
Did Sansom really marry Arthur and Guinevere?
Igraine interrupted my gloomy thoughts. Yes, I said, he really did.
And it wasn't in a great church, with trumpets playing?
It was in a clearing beside a stream, I said, with frogs croaking and willow catkins piling up behind the beaver dam.
We were married in a feasting hall, Igraine said, and the smoke made my eyes water.
She shrugged.
So what did you change in the last part? She asked accusingly. What story shaping did you do?
I shook my head. None.
But at Mordred's acclamation, she asked disappointedly, the stone was only laid on the stone, not thrust into it. Are you sure?
It was laid flat on top, I swear it. I made the sign of the cross. On Christ's blood, my lady. She shrugged.
Dafydd ap Gruffydd will translate the tale any way I want him to, and I like the idea of a sword in the stone. I'm glad you were kind about Keenaglas.
He was a good man, I said. He was also Igraine's husband's grandfather.
Was Cynwyn really beautiful?
Igraine asked. I nodded. She was. She truly was. She had blue eyes.
Blue eyes?
Igraine shuddered at such Saxon features.
What happened to the brooch she gave you?
I wish I knew, I said, lying. The brooch is in my cell, hidden there safe from even Sansom's vigorous searches. The saint, whom God will surely exalt above all men living and dead, does not allow us to possess any treasures. All our goods must be surrendered to his keeping. That is the rule. And though I surrendered everything else to Sansom, including Howlbane, God forgive me, I have Cynwyn's brooch still. The gold has been smoothed by the years, yet still I see Cynwyn when, in the darkness, I take the brooch from its hiding place and let the moonlight gloss its intricate pattern of interlocking curves. Sometimes, no, always, I touch it to my lips. Oh, what a foolish old man I have become. Perhaps I shall give the brooch to Igraine, for I know she will value it. But I shall keep it a while, for the gold is like a scrap of sunshine in this chill grey place. Of course, when Igraine reads this, she will know the brooch exists, but if she is as kind as I know her to be, she will let me keep it as a small remembrance of a sinful life.
I don't like Guinevere,
Igraine said. Then I have failed, I said.
You make her sound very hard,
Igraine said. I said nothing for a while, but just listened to the sheep bleating. She could be wonderfully kind, I said after the pause. She knew how to make the sad happy, but she was impatient with the commonplace. She had a vision of a world that did not hold cripples or bores or ugly things, and she wanted to make that world real by banishing such inconveniences. Arthur had a vision too, only his vision offered help to the cripples, and he wanted to make his world just as real.
He wanted Camelot,
Igraine said dreamily. We called it Dumnonia, I said severely.
Oh, you tried to suck all the joy out of it, Derval,
Igraine said crossly, though she was never truly angry with me.
I wanted to be the poet's Camelot, Green grass and high towers, and ladies in gowns, and warriors strewing their paths with flowers. I want minstrels and laughter. Wasn't it ever like that?"
"A little," I said, "though I don't remember many flowery paths. I do recall the warriors limping out of battle, and some of them crawling and weeping with their guts trailing behind in the dust."
"Stop it," Igraine said. "So why do the bards call it Camelot?" she challenged me.
"Because poets were ever fools," I said. "Otherwise, why would they be poets?"
"No, Derval. What was special about Camelot? Tell me."
"It was special," I answered, "because Arthur gave the land justice." Igraine frowned.
"Is that all?"
"It is more, child," I said, "than most rulers ever dream of doing, let alone do." She shrugged the topic away.
"Was Guinevere clever?" she asked.
"Very," I said. Igraine played with the cross she wore about her neck.
"Tell me about Lancelot." "Wait. When does Merlin come?"
"Soon."
"Is Saint Sansom being horrid to you?"
"The saint has the fate of our immortal souls on his conscience. He does what he must do."
"But did he really fall on his knees and scream for martyrdom before he married Arthur to Guinevere?"
"Yes," I said, and could not help smiling at the memory. Igraine laughed.
"I shall ask Brockvale to make the Mouse Lord into a real martyr," she said. "Then you can be in charge of Dinarac. Would you like that, Brother Derval?"
"I would like some peace to carry on with my tale," I chided her.
"So what happens next?"
Igraine asked eagerly. Armorica is next. The land across the sea. Beautiful Innis Treves, King Ban, Lancelot, Galahad, and Merlin. Dear Lord, what men they were! What days we had! What fights we gave, and dreams we broke in Armorica. Later, much later, when we looked back on those times, we simply called them the bad years. But we rarely discussed them. Arthur hated to be reminded of those early days in Dumnonia, when his passion for Guinevere tore the land into chaos. His betrothal to Cynwyn had been like an elaborate brooch that held together a fragile gown of gossamer, and when the brooch went, the garment fell into shreds. Arthur blamed himself, and did not like to talk about the bad years. Tudric, for a time, refused to fight on either side. He blamed Arthur for the broken peace, and in retribution he allowed Gorfithid and Gundlius to lead their war bands through Gwent into Dumnonia. The Saxons pressed from the east, the Irish raided out of the western sea, and, as if those enemies were not enough, Prince Cadui of Isca rebelled against Arthur's rule. Tudric tried to stay aloof from it all, but when Eäl's Saxons savaged Tudric's frontier, the only friends he could call on for help were Dumnonians, and so, in the end, he was forced into the war on Arthur's side. But by then the spearmen of Powys and Siluria had used his roads to capture the hills north of Inniswydrin, and when Tudric declared for Dumnonia, they occupied Glevum as well. I grew up in those years. I lost count of the men I killed and the warrior rings I forged. I received a nickname, Cadern, which means the mighty. Derval Cadern, sober in battle and with a dreadful quick sword. At one time, Arthur invited me to become one of his horsemen, but I preferred to stay on firm ground, and so remained a spearman.